Okay, how does the review process, the peer review process, differ across journals? That can be very different. So peer review, first of all, I'll go through the regular process, then I'll do a little bit of peer review in general, and then we can try to delineate a couple of differences. So the regular process is you create your manuscript, you submit it, this goes to the editor. There is a pre-check by the editor for, first of all, form. That means are all the rules, guidelines to authors fully met? And secondly, there's a glance at topic and journal fit. So is the topic based on the cover letter, the abstract, and the title relatively relevant to the journal itself? Does that fit their scope and your audience? That's a first cursory glance. There might even also be a glance into the manuscript, but not too deep. This is really quick. It's really about scope, about the audience. If this is positive, this is sent out for peer review. That means the editor contacts a couple, typically, let's say around 3, can differ between 2 and 4 or 5 reviewers, and ask them if they are able to review this new manuscript. People will get an abstract, maybe, and then a link to the portal where the full manuscript is in. And these researchers then have a certain amount of time to decide whether they can or want to review this article. Only after a while, if there's no response or if there's a no from the one of the reviewers, for example, another one might be selected. So let's say it's been sent out to 4. 2 of them have selected right away. 1 needed another follow-up and then responded yes that he would do it, and the 4th rejected. Then you might get 3 reviewers to do that. Typically, most of the time I've seen that you get comments from 2 or 3 reviewers. Actually, that's the common thing that I see on a first review. So when they have accepted, they have a certain time. Typically, it's 4 to 6 weeks. And of course, there might be a need to chase them to do the review. That means they read the manuscript, they make their comments, and then they share this back with the editor. Once all of these comments are in, the reviewer comments are in at the editors, they will look through that again, and they might make a decision at that point already that basically says, is this accepted already? Is this, does this require a revision? Sometimes there's also minor and major revision as different steps, or do they reject it at this stage? The rejection at that stage then typically is more on the content side. It's based on the reviewers. That's basically saying it's either not novel enough, not well controlled enough, not relevant to the field, things like that, if there's a rejection. And that then goes back from the editor to you, including the comments, however, so you always get them. I've never seen a paper directly accepted in the first reviews round. Don't expect that to happen. It always is a revision, so you need to plan for that there's going to be another round. Typically, the difference between a minor and major revision is minor oftentimes is more focused on text, data, presentation, so it's can be done much quicker. Most of the time, it doesn't require new experiments or extremely small experiments. Major revision typically means a couple of months of work, probably 6 months plus, more or less. This is just a high-level estimate that you actually need to go back to the lab for. So they ask for additional experiments, additional controls, and maybe additional parts. And there it also then gets interesting. Typically, you get so many reviewer comments that you can't cover all of them. Like we've had before, what do you do if you don't fully agree? You need to try to take as many of them as you can and find good arguments for the 1 or 2 that you might not be able to do. Try to cover practically everything that the reviewers recommend. Again, here it helps to see that as they're trying to be helpful to make your paper better. They're not trying to tell you what is bad about the paper. So it's really about making it better. So you see, you have submitted the paper, you've taken about 1 or 2 weeks on the editor's side. Typically, it's about 1 week. Then it goes out to review for 4 to 6 weeks, so it might even be longer. So let's estimate 6 to 8 weeks until you get the first feedback. Then you get to do the revision. Let's say it takes you 3 months, and then you go through the same process again. You submit it again. You need to, again, wait for editor's decision. They will check if you've covered the reviewer comments or most of them. They might also then say at this point it's not enough. But typically, because we are well prepared, this goes back out to the reviewers, and then they need to agree if the things are okay that you have done for that. If there's still small things that you could add on, it can go into additional rounds, especially when you're talking higher impact journals. Then it comes back to you. Hopefully, then it is accepted, or it is a little bit more revision work. Importantly, just don't stick too tightly to the names of major revision, minor revision, or reject, and so on. Just as an example, or every journal does that differently. So that's key difference in the peer review process. Every journal does that a little bit differently, what they call it. And also the number of reviewers might be very different between the journals. So the higher impact ones typically have a higher number of reviewers in there. You get more comments, you get better manuscripts in the end. But also it's a higher prestige to be reviewing for them, and they have a ton of manuscripts coming in as well. So that works well for them. And also the kind of people that they select as reviewers might be different. So it seems, this is not fully backed by data, but a request to review from Nature might read very differently in the email inbox of a senior professor than a small journal of German virology request. So there is a likelihood that a higher caliber or higher seniority of person might review for the higher journals as well. It might be different. And there's one huge difference to predatory journals. They don't do a peer review process, or they do a very quick one, or even worse, they do a fake one. So the rigorous review process that takes a lot of time as well is the hallmark of a scientific publication, and that absolutely needs to be done. And I have one last note before we get to the next questions on that. There's an interesting thing. If you're able to submit to Nature, I said don't stick to the words too closely. They don't do minor and major revisions. Basically, a minor revision for them is minor text work. You don't even touch anything on any of the data side. A major revision is the regular revision that you would get. And the bit longer version of that is reject with the possibility to resubmit. And that is practically the major revision at a Nature level journal, because they tell you it's out of our system. We don't promise that we will publish it if you address all of these comments in the right way, but we encourage you to resubmit, and that's typically something that you see very commonly in some of these higher level journals. So don't be discouraged if you get a reject with the possibility to resubmit. It's actually reasonably good and more or less the average that you'd expect from such a journal.